It's so interesting.
It's so interesting.
It's so interesting.
It's interesting.
Welcome to It's So Interesting, where people talk about their work and life experience. I am George Spitzer. Today I'm talking with John Sant'Ambrogio, who is a cellist. Okay, let's get right to it. I've read your book, The Day I Almost Destroyed the Boston Symphony and Other Stories. And today we're not going to so much talk about the book, although you can refer to stories in it, but about you as a cellist and how to inspire others to become a cellist. You've mentioned that you've had a charmed life. So tell me, why do you think you've had a charmed life?
Well, many times my life was saved, even though I had done rather stupid things. And that is a very good basis for me saying that my life has been charmed. I also have had a wonderful career. I have been the first cellist of the Saint Louis Symphony for 37 years. I've got to play with all the famous musicians. I was in the Boston Symphony. And I only started the cello when I was almost 15. And one of the purposes for writing the book is that I wanted to inspire other young people to have a vision, have a dream, work hard, and know that you could do almost anything, even though the world tells you you can't do it. You started too late, or you're not this, or you didn't do that. No, you can do it. And I know that that was a charmed life because so many times it was some power greater than me that was looking over my shoulder and saying, John, go here, or listen to that person, John, or, oh, by the way, I'm setting you up with someone who's going to help you get the job that you want. Oh, my goodness, I was so absolutely surprised at these things happening. I mean, I tell the story of being on a ladder in the Berkshire Mountains without a job at 26 years old. And Mrs. Goldberg comes under the ladder and she says, Johnny, yes, do you know there's an opening in the Boston Symphony, a last-minute opening? Well, if she hadn't told me that, I'm in the middle of the mountains, I would never have found out. And they didn't have the internet in those days. They didn't have computer. They didn't have any of that. She told me. But 20 years earlier, she was in a trolley car in Vienna, and the Nazis came in and said, all Jews stand up, and the man next to her held her down. She was going to get up and get killed. And so that man was another person that was blessed and blessed me by what he did, so that I actually got into the Boston Symphony. And there were 7 or 8 other people that did things that helped. So I have to say my life was blessed. And I'm blessed with 3 incredible children who love music, and 2 of them are musicians. One's a lawyer. That's a blessing to have. And my kids talk to me. Listen, that's not easy today. Sometimes, and they don't tell me what to do anymore. That's a blessing. You know, they just say, maybe you'd like to do this. Anyway, I feel very blessed.
You mentioned that you started learning or being a cellist later than most cellists become. Was there a reason why it was delayed, or is it because you just didn't know about it? I mean, why did you start so, quote, late, unquote?
Well, that's a good question. I was taught by my father for 5 years, from 5 to 10. Supposedly he was trying to teach me how to play the piano, and he did not know that you don't scare the heck out of your child while you're trying to force him to do something that you want him to do. And at 10, he slammed down the piano lid and said, don't touch that piano anymore. Oh, I was so happy. And so for 5 years, I just played basketball and had a good time outside. I tried to do my schoolwork and things like that. But my father finally wised up, and he brought home a cello when I was almost 15. And my father played violin, and my mother played piano. And the cello, wow, they can't play that. That was, inspired me to maybe try this. And then I fell in love with it, and I started working hard, and he left me alone, which was important. He set me up with another teacher, and that was great. That was the smartest thing he ever did. 2 times I think he tried to teach me, and both those times were very, very important. One time I got mad at him for telling me, come on, you're a violinist, don't tell me what to do. But he actually did wonderful things by sending me to certain teachers and things like that because he knew the music business. Then I just fell in love with it, and I just worked my tail. And, those were the days, we're talking 50s and late 40s, where things were different than they are today. There was a lot less competition. The only thing that was competing for me was probably sports. But, the television, I had to go to somebody else's house to peek at it. No internet, it was a whole different, drugs weren't even important there. Alcohol, a couple of nutties people did it, so we did, it was a whole different environment. And work was the ethic. Oh, that was fun, and exciting. And then I seemed to do pretty well, and for even late. And even though often teachers would say, well, you started very late. They don't think that but you just be a teacher or something. But they changed their mind, and not because I was great, but because I just really worked my tail off. And it was fun. Started to win some little awards here and there and everything. And so it was a different time. And as I bring out in my book, it's a different era now. When I auditioned for the Boston Symphony, and part of it was timing, because somebody had just passed on, and so they didn't have time to get to the others. But they let me come to this audition. There were only 8 of us competing. Today, there would be 200. It's much harder. Now, that's not to say don't be a musician. Let me just show you something. For instance, if you don't get into a major orchestra, but you like music and you play quite well, as a teacher, you can get anywhere from $40 to $70 an hour. I have a friend who's running a museum. She's getting $18 an hour. It's not a bad profession. It can be still good. There's some teachers, like in the big conservatories, they get $400 or $500 an hour, if you can believe that. Oh, that sounds like a lot. So even though you might not get into a major orchestra in these days, there are other things. And it's important. I would like to inspire a lot of people to do that, because they can go out and start little mini concert series, which then gets people aware of what music is like. And working with young people is so much fun, getting them excited about it. It's a very good alternative to drugs and alcohol. And I've seen many students who got so interested in it, they said, this is cool, rather than getting their high from some material object like drugs or alcohol or something like that. It's still a wonderful thing to do. And even if you don't go into the profession, not even as a teacher, it adds so much to your life. Music, it's just like art, anything like that can. I just wish that the dictators in Libya and Saudi Arabia or wherever would play a little music and get involved in that. I think things would be better, Anyway, so that's what happened. I got inspired. I worked very hard, and it just seemed like fun in those days.
You've met Pablo Casals,
oh, yes.
Right?
Yes.
You've met Yo-Yo Ma. You've
intersected
with them.
I have not met Bach. I'm not that old yet.
Okay, I will accept that. But you have intersected with these 3 great men. Give us a couple of examples of when you met Casals. I would imagine it was a very impressionable thing. And you haven't performed jointly with Yo-Yo because he plays solo, but you've also intersected with him too. Yeah, give us a...
Well, see, with Yo-Yo is an incredible human being. He's wonderful, and there's so many things that I admire in this man, what he's done for music, and the way he treated me, and he's even played jokes on me. He's an incredible person, and I've played with him only as the first cellist while he was playing concertos and things like that. Pablo Casals inspired me when I was 16 years old, and his Bach suites that he recorded, I think in the late 40s, and that's when they first started coming out. I was so impressed with them. He inspired me. When I was older, when I was a first cellist at the Saint Louis Symphony, I was asked to go play first cello for him at his festival in Puerto Rico. Now, I was so impressed. I was so grateful. I just thought, this is incredible. The man who inspired me, I'm going to play under him. And I'm going to be first cello for him and lead his section. And he's going to conduct. And then I began to get a little carried away. I thought, he's going to see how great I am. And he probably is going to tell the world. And I'm going to become famous. And you get carried away at times. And I flew into Puerto Rico, and I'm on the stage, and I sit down and leading my section, and the first piece we're going to play is Mendelssohn's Fingal's Cave Overture, which starts with cellos, just the cellos. Oh, I knew this was even better than I thought. And Pablo Casals at 96 walked out on that stage. He got up on the podium, and he raised his baton, and he pushed it down, and we started playing. But we only got to play 6 notes before he started yelling at us and telling us it wasn't right. No, do this, do that. And this went on for almost 50 minutes. And I knew, here this orchestra was made up of some of the best musicians in the world, and they are looking at me, and oh my gosh, I'm embarrassing myself after 50 minutes. And the rest of the orchestra is just looking up in the air or reading a book or something. He finishes, he lets us go through, and that's it. He doesn't say another word. And that night at the performance, he didn't stop us, and wow, that was great. And the next day I even got to meet him, his wife, who was 59 years younger than him. Now, it wasn't for bad reasons that she married him. She married him because she loved him and cared for him. He was 96 years old. She was going to be a nun before this. I met her, and I went to his home, and these pictures are of this, not me in the picture, but all of Casals. And it's just fascinating to see these things. And then 6 months later, he passed on. He went to the pearly gates, and St. Peter came down and realized it was Pablo Casals and complimented him for what he had done to teach me what music is all about and stuff. Anyway.
So he taught you a lesson in perfection.
Oh, yeah, he taught me a lesson. Right, he taught me a lesson in perfection. And these are interesting stories about Pablo Casals. In his book, it brings out that at 95, 96, he had arthritis, he had a lot of problems. His wife would walk him to the piano, and he would, at first his fingers were stiff, and as he played, his hands completely freed up. And when he was finished, he played about an hour, I think. His wife would come to him, and they would go out for a walk, and now he could walk. So that's something about what the music meant to him. And it means that to me, too. Here I am retired, supposedly retired, and I play 3 or 4 hours a day, sometimes 5. And I enjoy it. It's like being in heaven at times.
When you perform, essentially, that becomes the cherry on the cake.
Yes, it does. To perform for people and bring the joy to the people is incredible. And this might be interesting to somebody, but often as the first cellist of the St. Louis Symphony, I had to walk out on the stage realizing that I was about to play, with the orchestra, but then I was going to have a whole bunch of solos that all of a sudden I have to play and do. And there's a great temptation to get scared. There's a great temptation to think, oh boy, what's happening? In fact, at one couple of years, there was a critic who was a little upset with me, and this critic was not too happy, though eventually this critic got over it and gave me some really nice reviews. But when that was occurring, wow, all this temptation to really, feel terrible. And what happened, there were 2 things that I would do. And one I learned from my friend, the concertmaster David Halen, was that he just would, before the solo was coming up, he would just imagine this beautiful sound. He would imagine how that was, and that was going to come out. Oh, good. And the other thing that I did was I would say, thank you, Lord, for letting me share this beauty with you. And that would always calm me down and let me get and play. So that had a great effect upon, because it can be very challenging when you are playing. First of all, if you're playing a solo concerto or Bach or something by yourself, But that's all the whole evening is doing that. When you are playing with everybody else and you're hidden and you're just one of 100 people, and then all of a sudden everything stops, and now you've got to play. Well, that's when you have to adjust your whole attitude, and you have to do it fast. And so that's, and you do it explicitly at that moment. So that has been, was a great help for me.
I interpret what you're saying, that the cello is an instrument from which the sound comes, and you're the player on it, but effectively you meld into it to become as much of the instrument itself, yourself.
Yes, and that's a good question, because I have several ways of looking at this. I feel that it's a miracle. The whole thing is a miracle. Music is a miracle. It's hard for me not to see that there's something going on here. And with music, and when I'm playing, I think about, wow, I mean, where is this coming from? There are times when I'm playing the most complicated music, and I'm not the greatest memorizer in the world. I have friends who are fantastic. It takes me a while to really get it, but I'm not even thinking. All of a sudden I'm thinking about something else, and here my hands and arms and fingers are all moving and doing it. How does that happen? Where's it? It's sort of like a computer or the hard drive. It's something's coming out. I'm just there, and doing it, and I'm not. It's not. In some ways, it's not coming from me. It's beyond me. And when I think of Bach, when he wrote some of this music, I mean, I can show you, it's incredible. And some of the great composers, how do they do it? How do they put those notes together? There's a wonderful book by Leonard Bernstein. I think it's called The Infinity of Music, or something like that. I wish I could, but it's infinities in there. He shows that you take there are only 12 different tones, and you take 2 tones, and you've got about 400,000 different possibilities with there. 3 notes, 4 notes, now you're getting into trillions. It's unbelievable. It's infinite, the number of possibilities of putting those 12 notes together to come up and have some meaning. And why, for instance, does Bach, if I hear one note, it could be in the right key, but one note is not what Bach wrote, I immediately question it. That's not what Bach would have done. Well, wait a second. It's in an F major chord. What's wrong with that? It's just not what Bach would have done. He would have not put that note there. And so that's an amazing thing to realize how infinite the possibilities for expression. And music is, it's interesting to me. How do we discover that the different vibrations of sound create these different things that can move you? Look at a movie and watch, and then listen to the music and take different music. It impresses you in a different way. Sometimes having some great music on while you're driving through the country, looking at the mountains, and you're listening it makes it even more impressive. You can go and look at those mountains in the night, completely dark, nothing. There's nothing. And then the light starts to come on. Already, that is what is started. Oh, it's beautiful. And then add the music. Wow.
And your experience with Yo-Yo, was it a professional, or was it you mentioned he's a jokester? Did he play a joke on you, or you played a joke on him?
Oh, he played the jokes on me. As I said, once he was playing a concerto with the orchestra, and he was always so friendly when he would come to the orchestra. A cadenza, he was playing a cadenza in the concerto. That's the time when the orchestra stays quiet, and the soloist plays all this music based upon what he's just played by the composer, if it's Dvorak or whatever. He was playing his cadenza and looking around at me and smiling. I didn't know what he was doing. And the lady behind me, who was one of my assistant principal cellists, she said, "John, do you know what he's doing?" And I said, "No." She said, "He's playing music that you played at a recital yesterday, and he's putting it into cadenza." How did he do that? How could he make up a cadenza just with adding these other pieces in there. And I didn't even get the joke at first, and then I started smiling back, and But he, I thought that was so cute in what he would do. But he was also very helpful, and he's like probably half my age at the time, and I asked him certain questions, and he would, here's what I do. It was never autocratic or like, you dummy, listen. No, here's what I do. You might try this. He very diplomatic, a very loving human being. I have such admiration. He's done so much for music.
I've been talking with John Sant'Ambrogio. Thank you for being here, John.
Oh, my pleasure.
If you would like to contact John or to listen again to this show or any other show, go to itssointeresting.com.
It's so interesting.
It's so interesting.
So interesting.
It's interesting.